Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tour Pro Talks. If you don't already know me, I'm Genevieve White, travel and tourism copywriter. Now, it's a very special session today because it's the first session we've had for quite a long time since I went on holiday back in June. Second, we've got the largest number of sign-ups today that we've had since Tour Pro Talks started, which is absolutely amazing. Now, this is probably partly because the subject of today's session is over tourism, which is something that is on everybody's mind, but it's definitely a very big bit because we have a really well-known and very well-trusted responsible tourism expert as our very special guest today. So let me warmly welcome Jamie Burr.
Hello. Hi, Jenny. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks so much for being here today, Jamie. So I think Jamie needs very little intro, but just in case your paths haven't already crossed, I'll tell you a wee bit about him. So Jamie helps tourism businesses do things differently. He's building regenerative operations that make money as well. So he's all about practical training and marketing that works in the real world. So we can help leaders figure out sustainability, without going broke in the process. He's also really big on bringing people together. He co-founded the Better Routes Collective, which is an online community for travel pros, and Latitude, which is a networking event series, because he reckons that the industry needs more collaboration and less competition if we're going to sort out the big challenges that we're facing at the moment. So that's a bit about Jamie. Did I get that more or less right, Jamie?
Sounds more or less perfect. Yeah, spot on.
That's good. And not forgetting the very important people who are here with us today, our audience. Thank you so much for joining us, for all the interest in today's session. Please do say hello, say where you're watching or listening to this from, and do feel free to ask any questions as well. We'll be kicking off with a couple of questions I've prepared for Jamie, but we'd love to hear your questions as well, and Jamie's really happy to answer them. So, without much further ado, Jamie, I know you have been on an epic adventure recently. Can you tell me a little bit about where you've been and how you've been traveling?
Yeah, sure. So, for the last 2.5 years, my girlfriend and I have been struggling to create our own little campervan DIY conversion built from scratch. And we thought it would take maybe 10 months. So, very quickly, though, we discovered that I'm terrible at DIY and it ended up taking 2 years. But eventually, we managed to get the whole thing up and running with solar panels, a kitchen, bathroom, you name it. It's basically a living, working home on wheels. And yeah, back in February, we set off on the ferry from Portsmouth in the UK to Bilbao in the north of Spain. And yeah, we went along the north coast of Spain down to Portugal through the from north to south, and then came out the bottom end down to Algeciras, which is a port in the south of Spain. And we spent about 2 months going all over Morocco. So, places like Marrakesh and the hot spots you can expect, like Tangier, Casablanca. But we also went to these really amazing um, places where you could hear a pin drop, the Sahara Desert and the high Atlas Mountains, and also managed to get in a bit of surfing as well, but also discovered I'm pretty crap at surfing as well. But it was an amazing trip, yeah. So I'm a digital nomad doing the van life thing, and yeah, it's been really amazing.
It sounds like an absolute dream. And I mean, I think that could be a whole Tour Pro Talk session in itself, the whole digital nomad thing. It's so interesting. And it'd be great to hear firsthand about, that whole experience. But we're going to be talking a little bit more about, the kind of over tourism aspects here. So can you tell me, I mean, you were literally on the ground, traveling through all these places, making these comparisons between the tourism hotspots and the quieter destinations. What insights did this give you into the travel and tourism space today?
Yeah, well, I mean, at times, I think people who are working as marketers like myself, remote based, can sometimes feel like a bit of a fraud, like you're not really part of the tourism ecosystem, I guess. But living in the van and traveling on the road has really opened up my eyes and given me all these opportunities to compare one destination to another. I mean, Portugal was. I mean, I love Portugal and Portuguese food, Portuguese culture, but you can really see these big impacts that over-tourism is having. And, you know, bucket list publications, hotspots where Lisbon and Porto are always featured. I mean, my partner and I, we were in Lisbon and Porto in about April. So by no means peak season, not, you know, July, August, summer when there's loads and loads of tourists there. But even so, in April, there was still so many people there. And, you know, although they're both beautiful places and I'd perhaps love to live in one of those cities one day, you know, you get to see that it was kind of scary in a way to see so many people there in April, and then to imagine what it must be like right now in the
Mm.
middle of August. Because yeah, even in April, all the bars were full. There were tours happening everywhere. Um, but I mean, we went to another city between Lisbon and Porto called Coimbra, which is almost like the Oxford of Portugal, because they've got one of the world's oldest universities, beautiful botanical gardens. My partner and I, we love going to botanical gardens around the world. But yeah, there was hardly anyone there. And you really see the impacts that these hotspot bucket list articles are having, where you can barely move at times compared to places like Coimbra and Salamanca when I came on the way back to the UK in my van. Hardly anyone there, but these amazing, beautiful cities where um, you know, where you can really experience the culture and, dare I say, have those more authentic experiences which don't feel staged and, you know, part of a transactional product, really. You can just explore, you can get to chat with locals and have these amazing stories to come back and tell your friends and family. So yeah, it was really eye-opening. And then, like I said, we spent 2 months in Morocco where, of course, we went to places like Marrakesh, which I've mentioned, but the most memorable experiences and stories we had were, you know, mixing with local Berber families and farmers there, sharing our packed lunches, and really struggling in my terrible broken French. And but yeah, it was amazing to have those stories. There was one particular family which was basically in the middle of nowhere in Morocco, but they had a campsite there where we had our van parked, and I spent about 2 weeks with that family, you know, helping them a bit with their social media, with their marketing. I ended up giving them my old laptop in the end because I thought, well, I'm not using it, so these guys would benefit hugely from that. And you know, just experiencing the kindness of strangers and learning about different cultures that are wildly different from um, British culture, I guess, was really fantastic and rewarding experience to see all of those different places in comparison. Yeah.
Well, this is all, I mean, such brilliant stuff, and just all of these examples of connection and the kind of memories that would come from experiences like that are really very powerful. I'm going to ask you to hold these thoughts, Jamie, because we're going to come back to this in a little minute. But I am neglecting our wonderful audience who are all very excited to be here. So let's say hi to some of the folk who've joined us. We've got Verity. Hi, Verity. Lovely to see you here today. And Hang. Hello from London. Hello, Hang, and Sarah, currently working from Italy. Oh, I wonder whereabouts you are, Sarah. We've got Mark from Japan. Hello, Mark. Oh, hi, Maria. Oh, I know you're in Edinburgh. I saw your post earlier. Welcome. And Suzanne. Hey, Suzanne. Oh, yes, I knew you were in Coventry, Verity. Angela from London. Marna from Cape Town. Angelica, sorry. Got your name wrong there. Wow, there's so many people. Look at all these hellos. It's impossible to say hello to absolutely everybody, but I'll pop your name up. And we've got people from all over the world. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay, hello everybody. I have to stop because we need to get on with some questions, but it's so lovely to have you all with us today. Thank you so much for joining. Now, okay, I want to get back. Oh, and I should say, I think I said this at the beginning, everybody, but do feel free to ask questions, and I will scroll through and find any questions that you ask so I can share these with Jamie. Okay, Jamie, so I want to go on now to talk in a little bit maybe more from a marketing perspective. So obviously what you're talking about here is places that are potentially destinations but are maybe being overlooked as tourism destinations, which means that everything is getting concentrated in these tourism hotspots. So can we talk a wee bit about if you are a tourism operator wanting to promote a lesser known place, how would you go about doing this?
Yeah, well, promoting a lesser known place, I guess, is not a case of trying to make or find a replica of a hotspot, but identifying a unique story and experience that's rooted in the community, and then evaluating the destination's capacity, both infrastructural and social, so that we can share that story without being, damaging the local destination. And that really requires a fundamental shift from product centric to community centric. Um, a robust framework, which we could use for assessing regenerative potential, should really be built on 4 different pillars. And that's number one, story and experience potential, because it's all about the guest and traveler experience. Number two, community readiness, which is the most critical and often overlooked step. Does the local community actually want more tourism?
Mm,
Infrastructural capacity, number three. And number four, governance and vision. So is there a local DMO, a cooperative, or a municipal government that has a clear, long-term sustainable vision for tourism?
mm,
Yeah, sorry. So, I mean, building on that those 4 pillars, you can create a regenerative potential scorecard for any new destination that you're considering promoting. So it's about finding the right places with locals that want tourism and want the economic benefits of that. But it's all about balance, really.
mm,
And it's got to come from community first, community stakeholder engagement, and being proactive rather than reactive, like we're seeing situations like in Venice and Barcelona, where I guess the lack of management of tourism capacity is spilled over into these protests, which we're now seeing. I mean, I was speaking to Jed Brown from Low Season Travelers, sorry, on Tuesday, and he was talking about his experience recently coming back from Mallorca, seeing tourists go home sprayed everywhere. I mean, I've experienced that going to places like Tenerife. I'm sure a lot of us have seen that um, that graffiti sprayed and
mm,
marked in places. And speaking to Jed, yeah, it was a really interesting conversation because we were trying to dig deeper into who do they mean by tourists? Who are the tourists they want to go home? Is it all tourists? Is it people who are just coming for the day? Is it people in low season? Is it people who are coming in the middle of winter? How are they defining that? And once it gets to that stage of the graffiti and the anti-tourism protest, then that's the point where it's already too late, really. That's then when you start seeing things like tourism taxes introduced, banning cruise ships into the city centre of Venice, for instance. And we need to be proactive rather than reactive, and not letting things get to that stage before we try and manage the situation.
mm. Yeah, I mean, all really important points, and the point about putting the community first is just so fundamental because ultimately they are the people who are going to suffer if things get too saturated in their place. Now we've got a question from Hang, who always comes with brilliant questions. She says popular destinations often have that built-in pool, which makes selling them easier to an extent. Do you find it trickier to market overlooked places? And if so, any ways you found to turn that into a strength?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're talking about places, for instance, like Paris, they've got those recognized places that you can visit, like the Eiffel Tower, of course, iconic. Um, places on everyone's list of things to do in Venice, like St. Mark's Square, but often those places are just rammed with tourists, and they don't often provide that really much of a meaningful and memorable experience, because a lot of people there are just there to get the picture. But in terms of the overlooked places and marketing them, it's really about finding what makes that destination unique. Obviously, like we've said already, you need to consider whether the local stakeholders want tourism in the first place. But once you've got that green tick and they're happy to welcome tourists, it's about finding the local heritage, the local culture, and the stories which can be told. Whether it's, a natural place like a forest or some mountains? Is it a particular type of handicraft? Is it the local biodiversity? There's so many different stories which are unique to every destination, and it's about uncovering those stories, and going all in on trying to promote that, usually through long-term marketing campaigns, long-term and long form. So I'd recommend using things like documentaries, podcast series, and things like that, rather than just short form Instagram reels and TikTok videos, which you scroll past once and you never see them again. But you really want to dig deep into the story and the history, the culture, and the nature that surrounds the place. So that's my recommendation, basically, on how to market those overlooked places.
And I mean, that really is possible to do with every place has a story, doesn't it? Absolutely every place in the world. Okay, here's another. The questions from the audience are so good that I'm just shelved my own questions for now. So here's a question from Margil Cruz: how to manage quantity when you cannot manage the arrivals? For example, airport of Barcelona is the entrance for almost 80% of tourists, and it's managed by central government.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really difficult one. I guess that really comes between the relationships between the destinations, the local government, the DMOs, and the arrival ports. So, for instance, the cruise ports, the cruise lines, airlines, and airports, of course. Again, referring back to my chat with Jed the other day, he's been in lots and lots of destination conferences and meetings where destinations are pitching to the cruise lines, for example, wanting their business, but they're not really considering the impact on local infrastructure, health concerns, and things like that. Pollution, sulfur dioxide, and stuff like that from the cruise lines. But yeah, it's really about having those conversations and always putting local residents first. But it is really tricky. It means that all people have got to be on the same page, all of the stakeholders, and having that dialogue between all of the relevant parties. With the cruise industry, and these destinations that we're pitching to them, they're often not really considering the economic benefits. It's just about the visitor numbers and not a lot else. But the problem with a lot of cruise lines, unfortunately, and the problem with the big cruise ships, I mean, I'm just picking on the cruise industry here, but there's
Yeah.
lots of problems with airlines as well. But for instance, if you've got a cruise ship that's coming in with 5,000 passengers, a lot of those people are eating on the ship, they're staying overnight on the ship, and all of that money, most of it, the economic leakage, most of the time spent in the destination and the tourist dollars spent are actually going back to the cruise line and going back to their headquarters in the United States or wherever. The excursions are booked on the cruise ships. And maybe they'll buy a couple of souvenirs or things like that. But the balance between giving back to the local destination and how much goes to the cruise line is just a huge difference, which I think we need to have a conversation more about how do we share the economic benefits with the local people so that they see the value in it. And they can invest in more infrastructure, they can manage things in like their healthcare systems, for example, because the pollution caused by airports and cruise ports is off the scale, basically. So yeah, really it's about having the conversations between ports, the arrival ports, and the destinations themselves, and trying to disperse the tourists. And that's really everyone's responsibility, not just between the ports and the destinations themselves, but our job, my job as a marketer, when helping out destinations, is to try and find the other options out there to disperse the tourists. And we can do that either by spreading them out to different areas, or we can focus on seasonality, so pushing more exclusive events in overlooked destinations. But yeah, I'm going on way too long and going right down a rabbit hole.
It's fascinating. I could honestly listen to this all day. It's so interesting hearing all of this, bigger picture stuff. And I mean, I think you're right. We've all of us got a part to play in this, in making that change. Marketers. I mean, you mentioned at the beginning, I think, about bucket list tourism, and I mean that comes from different places. But even as a copywriter, you can change that by starting to move away from that sort of, 5 places to see in Paris, must see places narrative, and just being a bit more creative and looking around for other possibilities. Now we have more questions than I think you're going to be able to answer from our audience. So let's have a look at some more of our audience questions. Oh, here's an interesting one from Martin. Martin says, do you think over-tourism is a result of influencers focusing on pushing their Instagram posts for their sole benefit? And could they, or should they, be diversifying their photo portfolio to include some of the less well-known places? Okay.
That's a really interesting question, going into the impacts of social media. I mean, I've just seen Stuart McDonald from Indonesia in the chat, and he posts, these amazing pictures of influencers in places like Bali and Indonesia all the time. But yeah, in terms of the role of influencers, again, they're another important stakeholder in terms of the promotion of destinations. And I think really destinations and businesses, of course, hotels, tour operators and things like that. We need to think, if you're serious about fixing the over-tourism problem, and you're serious about regenerative tourism, sustainable tourism, ethical tourism, whatever you want to call it, we need to really get focused on the influencers that understand sustainable tourism. So I'd suggest working with them instead, because they understand the core issues underpinned by over-tourism. So, the unaffordable housing, the strained public services, and the fractured communities. So we need to highlight those other destinations, absolutely. But I mean, for a lot of influencers, I imagine that the views and the followers are super important. And I guess the attraction of going to these hotspots and well-known places like Venice, Lisbon, Paris, Barcelona, wherever, maybe they get more views, maybe more followers. I don't know too much about the world of influencers, but that is certainly a big problem, I think, where the same destinations are getting promoted over and over again, and we need to see different places. We need to disperse the tourists and share that promotion and share the stories on a broader, more thoughtful scale, I think. Thinking consciously about what are the impacts of showing, I mentioned Coimbra, for example, between Porto and Lisbon earlier. And I'm not saying that Coimbra is the antidote to over-tourism in Lisbon and Porto, not at all. In fact, if by mentioning Coimbra, and the risk of highlighting these destinations is that they are then set on this path to becoming the next over-tourism problem. But it's all about being proactive and managing the hotel capacity, the infrastructure and things like that, making sure everything's in place first before focusing on increasing visitor numbers and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm at risk of going down so many rabbit holes with all of these questions, but I hope that kind of answers your question, Martin. I hope that helps.
I think you're doing an absolutely brilliant job of answering the questions. And it's a very, very big topic. So you're doing a super job. I think this question from Adrian really kind of ties in with Martin's question, but this one is a little bit more about our own responsibility as travelers and how we use social media. Because obviously, even if you've got a personal account with loads of followers, you might not be an influencer, but you could be influencing your friends and family as well. So I mean, that's something to think about too, isn't it, Jamie?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, marketing, I think, has a bit of a bad reputation, and I certainly don't like having to slap the word responsible tourism marketer into my LinkedIn tagline, but it's my job basically. But the core of marketing really is about effective communication. But really, when you're working in responsible and regenerative tourism, you need a much broader awareness of the issues and trying to combat those. So we've got a huge responsibility in terms of destination marketing. So not just dispersing tourists to different places away from the hotspots and capital cities, but we need to highlight those places where tourism is wanted and welcomed, and the locals want those economic benefits. So we've got a big job in terms of promoting the alternative destinations, which are ready for it, which are geared up for it. And like I say again, Coimbra, I don't know specifically the details of the tourism management systems in Coimbra. It was just a beautiful city where there was basically nobody there. But yeah, we've just got to be very careful and think more broadly, more holistically about everything that sustainability underpins, basically. The economic benefits, of course, but also the impacts to local people, that social pillar, and the environment, of course, not just within the local destination, but the impact of carbon emissions and stuff like that, which is another huge separate topic, which I could spend hours rambling on about. But yeah.
I don't think you ramble at all. As I said before, your answers are amazing. Jamie, I'm just thinking from many people watching and listening to this will think, oh, this is so interesting, this is so important. I want to find out more about this. Where's the best place to look if you want to apply some of these things you were talking about, like the pillars to look out for, when you're thinking about promoting a new destination? What are some good resources? I mean, do you have anything you'd be able to point or signpost people towards?
Yeah, well, top of mind, my conversation with Jed Brown the other day. He's got some really great resources on his low season traveler website. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of the big organizations like the World Travel and Tourism Council, for example, they've got a huge library of free resources which you can download. I'm also quite a big advocate for the positive benefits of using AI, and I've been using Google Gemini a lot recently, and its deep research feature, which is amazing at collecting lots of different sources from hundreds and hundreds of different websites and synthesizing all of that data. So, where it might have taken me, I don't know, 10 hours to go through 5 or 6 different reports and find them in the first place, these AI tools are really fantastic now. And I mean, not just talking about using the prompts and things like you would basic stuff on ChatGPT, for example, but toggling on the deep research feature, because that can pull in all of the stuff that you're looking for, basically. And that's been a really great way for me to be able to access things like the World Travel and Tourism Council's reports. Of course, the UN World Travel, it's called World UN Tourism now, isn't it? Not UNWTO. But yeah, the big organizations have these big reports, guidelines, and playbooks on how to do the marketing for things effectively, how to communicate stories, how to connect with indigenous cultures and promote what's unique to them. But yeah, there's loads of stuff out there. But I think as a place to start from, I would recommend using these new AI capabilities, the deep research features, which can pull in all of these different websites and resources. But just be aware that sometimes it can hallucinate. And what I mean by that, if you're not aware of the term hallucination with AI, it can just give you a bunch of junk which doesn't actually exist. But The good thing about Google Gemini's deep research features is it shows you the actual sources and reference where it came from. So it's got the links and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's always good to double check, but it is an amazing feature. You're right.
Mm.
So I'll be putting links to all of these resources that Jamie's spoken about in the Tour Pro newsletter, which will come out on Tuesday. In the meantime, we are out of time, unfortunately, which, yeah, as usual, is flown past. We've still got loads of comments, which I'll go and have a look at after the session. Lots of good questions, but some of the questions I think Jamie did actually answer. There's some kind of similar questions there. So hopefully you've got your question answered, but if not, I'm sure Jamie won't mind going along and having a look and mopping up any questions that are still there. What else can I say? Oh yeah, Jamie, just quickly, where's the best place for people to contact you or find out more about you?
Yeah, sure. So my website, which I'm currently updating to focus purely on strategy now, is jamieburr.com. Very boring, unimaginative domain name, but that's my main hub. My email is hello@jamieburr.com. LinkedIn's the place where I hang out mostly in terms of doing social media, but I've also just opened an Instagram account so that I can, share more things like this when asked to promote things like Tour Pro Talks and other podcasts, which I've joined. I'm not great on Instagram, but yeah, LinkedIn, email, my website, those are the best places to find me.
I'm not good on Instagram either, so I understand. Okay. Huge thanks, Jamie. That's been an absolutely lovely discussion with you. And thank you so much to our lovely audience for all your questions. The next Tour Pro Talks, I'm super organized this time around, and I know exactly when it's going to be. So if you want to save the date, it's Thursday, August the 28th at 12:30 p.m. UK time. And I'll be speaking with AI travel expert Ivan Ivanovic, who's here today from Budapest. And Ivan will be talking about how to stretch one strong content idea across 5 or 4, I think it was 5 different formats: email, blog, reel, with a little bit of help from AI. So that links in nicely with the AI that you were just talking about there, Jamie. So thanks again to everybody. A million thanks to you, Jamie, and see you soon for another Tour Pro Talks. Goodbye.
Take care. Bye.